Darlene Morgan here of Morgan Law Group. Today we're going to talk about what some of the important information is that you'll want to gather in advance of an estate planning meeting with your lawyer. Now, all firms are a little different in how they handle things and the information that they're looking for in terms of how they work with clients. And the approach is going to be personal, hopefully, to your particular situation. But I can tell you there are some typical things that an estate planning attorney is going to ask for in advance of a meeting that will really, at least in our firm, make your initial meeting go efficiently and be very productive and very informative. So in our firm, what we like to do is we send out a worksheet. It's actually part of a packet, and the packet gives you information about our firm, of course, so that you know a little bit more about us. But that worksheet is really critical because it's going to ask you certain information to provide in advance of the meeting. Now, as you know, the information that you provide is protected. It's confidential under the attorney-client privilege, so you don't need to worry about any of that information getting out. But the things that we're going to want to know about are biographical information. So we do ask about your name and birth date. Certain information triggers our thoughts depending on your age. We're going to want to usually find out about how many kids you have and what their ages are, because all of this information during our initial meeting is going to be part of a conversation where we're looking to guide you and make recommendations. But without this background information or biographical information, we wouldn't really know where to start. So this really helps us to focus on getting you the right information by finding out, like I said, that biographical information about you, whether you're single or unmarried or divorced, widowed. All those kinds of things are going to be part of that biographical information piece. The second thing we usually want to know about is your dependents or your beneficiaries. So these would be your kids. If you don't have kids, it would be the list of people that you would want to benefit if you passed away. Who would you want to receive your stuff if something happened to you? So that's going to be another piece of information that we'll ask for. The next thing we're going to want to know is if you have any animals. That also would be included, something to talk about as part of your estate plan. Fourth, we're going to want to talk about your employment situation. Usually just knowing a little bit about your employment situation and your income helps us to identify maybe any issues that you might currently impact your estate planning, any benefits that you might be entitled to, or some long-term planning having to do with employment situation. Another thing that we ask for initially in that worksheet is to find out who you might be considering to have as decision makers in your estate plan. So this would be, who would you think you'd want to make financial decisions for you if you couldn't make them for yourself? Who would be a good person that you would trust to be that financial decision maker? So we ask you to think about that in advance. For some people, that's an easy decision. They know exactly who they would want right off the top of their head. For other people, it's a very difficult decision, and they really have to do some soul searching and think about it very carefully. But that's things like who would be your trustee, who would be executor, who would be your financial power of attorney. Next, we want you to think about in advance and list out, if you've thought about, who you'd want to make a medical decision for you. And sometimes that's the same person, but sometimes it's not. Who would be good at implementing your medical wishes if they were called upon in a stressful situation to make those decisions on your behalf for you. So there's a lot of topics that we typically do cover in our initial meeting. Here at Morgan Law Group, we really try to make this whole process as easy as possible by literally taking you by the hand and walking you through the questions in an easy conversational format so that you can really digest the process and feel like you're making empowered and informed decisions in creating your estate plan. And that's really kind of just gives you a background of what we would be doing, or the information that you'd need to think about in advance. We also ask you to list out your assets. Generally speaking, we do that so that we have an idea where to guide you in legally what would happen with your assets, and then what would you want to happen with your assets. So that's also part of the initial worksheet that we ask for. And of course you can put as much detail or as little detail as you're comfortable with, but the more information that we have prior to our meeting, the better the meeting can go, just because then we're prepared and we can have already thought through some of the things that we want to bring up with you about your specific situation and your specific assets. So that's really it. And it shouldn't be a scary process. It's actually, we, like I said, try to make it, break it down into components to make it as easy as possible. Sometimes the hardest first step is just calling to make that first appointment, and then it can go very easily from there.